Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to A Fearapeutic Lens, where my wife Renee will use her expertise to share some insights she has about the psychology of films or video games of the horror genre, though we may branch out in the future. Go ahead and tell them a little bit about yourself, Renee.
Good evening. My name is Ryne Escher, and I am a licensed therapist in a couple of states now, as well as a board supervisor for the state that we live in. I've been in mental health for about 15 years. I've done everything from inpatient psychiatry to private practice to intensive outpatient. I've worked with kids. I think the youngest kid I ever worked with was 4 years old, and the oldest person I ever worked with was 103. So yeah, I've kind of done a lot, but mostly you're here because I'm a huge horror movie nerd. Really just a huge nerd in general. I am not ashamed of it, and I will say it proudly. So, Nox and I decided to start a channel where I just kind of talk about my expertise in relation to the things we watch. So thanks for sticking around. We appreciate it.
All right, and I am her husband, Nox. We've been married 16 years and we have a beautiful baby boy together. My role in this is that I will bounce questions off of Renee from the layman's perspective. I also put all of this together, so if this all looks a little free trial to you, that is because I've never done this before and we are learning as we go. Everything you see is subject to change and hopefully improvement. So tonight, we are going to be discussing the final episodes of the Amazing Digital Circus, the hugely successful web series that began in 2023 and just recently finished. It's created by the artist known as Gooseworks and is a glitch production. Special note, this is not a review. We are operating under the assumption that you are familiar with the show and are looking for some extra insights. If you haven't seen the Amazing Digital Circus, you might still get some entertainment out of us, but we do recommend you watch it if you can, because we both enjoy it.
And we always say at the beginning of these, and I know Nox has a little spiel that, yeah, we're going to be going into some of this stuff, but don't take this as advice for you. This is just kind of my observations that I have noticed on here. And if you are in need of emergency care, 988 is a great resource. I can speak tonight. Woof. But yeah, we are actually going to have a lot of fun with this. And we chose to do 8 and 9 together because that's how it was filmed in cinemas. So we thought we would just do the two together.
Sorry. Very important notice. The psychoanalysis done in this video is for entertainment purposes only, and it is not intended as therapeutic or diagnostic advice. If you feel you are experiencing mental health-related symptoms, please seek personal care from a licensed professional. And yeah, we were fortunate enough to see the Amazing Digital Circus when it aired in theaters. It was the 8th and 9th episodes packaged together with a brief recap at the start. We enjoyed it. I got a sticker.
He is very proud of that sticker, folks. He says, yeah, we would see it, and I got a sticker. Very much enjoys that sticker.
It's a cute little sticker. Got Jax on it. But yeah, big finale. And once we're done here, we're going on vacation, and then when we get back, I'm going to start the process of trying to edit this down into shorter, bite-sized videos, and also do shorts on YouTube and maybe something on Facebook. And I've got an Instagram that I have not done anything with. We'll see, because that seems to be where a lot of people go for recommendations. I don't know. But yeah. So the Amazing Digital Circus. The previous episode ended with the big revelation that, Kane can and has messed with their heads, and Jax is kind of got some secrets. But yeah, it picks up. Our title, well, this title doesn't play just yet in the episode. This is just for show. However, where's my slideshow? There it is. Our episode actually begins, and this episode title is an unpronounceable bunch of letters like Hijil Skull, Gif, Diffy, whatever.
Just sneeze, and it'll probably be the pronunciation.
Anyway, episode 8 begins with the activation of the red AI. It is ominous. We got very deep droning sounds, and then a bunch of information is dumped into the red AI, and we get flashes of pictures like birthday parties, a fair, balloons, and a circus. And this results in the red AI putting out very simple but solid shapes. Then a second data dump takes place, and we get pictures of carnival masks, candy, picnics, toy clowns, a pool, and we get more complex but kind of shaky looking shapes coming out. And then the third data dump, when we get lots more pictures, we get the CNA office and several different shots around those offices. And then the result is we're getting it rapidly shoots out heavily distorted shapes. And then the red AI is contained, and a blue AI forms. And the process begins anew. But shortly after, the red AI breaks from containment, goes up and consumes the blue AI, and it starts shooting off really random shapes until it kind of, settles down and forms the circus.
So I thought this scene was really interesting because, it's the visual representation of AI that is not super insightful. I think everybody realized that. And we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to it in episode 9. I think that it's interesting to see that the red AI, in my opinion, with seeing the shapes be a lot more shaky and seeing them being a lot more distorted, I think it's showing that it's actually thinking outside the box. I think that it's, not sticking to maybe a straightforward type algorithm, or you can take it that the AI is kind of going crazy. It's being overloaded with the system. But I think it's cool that it's showing that representation that, hey, it is actually not producing what we wanted it to produce. And I also like the literal representation of the red AI breaking out of its cage to take over with the blue, and the two of them merging together. I think that's actually, CNA, Cain and Abel, jealousy over the brother, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, symbolism.
All right, but then when we're finished with this bit about the AI, we are shown another flashback to what appears to be the very first group in the circus. Kinger here sits by himself, and he sees this, there's people gathered around, but there's this dog person who appears to be kind of upset with Cain, and Cain has a more vacant than usual look. But then quickly a queen chess piece approaches, and they begin talking, and they quickly realize that they recognize each other. They are married outside the circus, but they cannot recall each other's names. But they do comfort each other and talk about the circumstances of them being brought here. And right as the gentleman we come to know as Kinger is saying, "I will do everything in my power to protect you," and he gets cut off with a flash forward of him looking traumatized as Cain drops the abstracted character into the cellar.
And I think it's really, I don't know, that part really pulled at my heartstrings a lot because of my work that I've done with hospice and people who have dementia, Alzheimer's, memory loss sorts of things. Because I have a lot of clients who I talk with caregivers too, whose parents are going through that, and how much it hurts when their family doesn't recognize them. So when Kinger and his wife are there, I think they call her Queenie later. I can't remember. Anyway, when they see each other, they know that they love each other. They know that they care for each other, but they can't name how they know each other. They can't name each other. They can't do these things. And so I've seen that with people who are having dementia, Alzheimer's on maybe not their best day. Best day is they recognize everybody, but they know, hey, this person really cares about me. This person loves me. And it actually reminded me of a client I had once, who, again, hospice really started to decline. Family called me because she was acting really, really stressed. And when I got there, she couldn't talk. but she reached out to me. She held my hand. She smiled at me. I think she recognized me. So it's really interesting how emotion can be so strong, even when you don't have verbal language for it.
All right. Then Kane makes the comment that he's running low on humans and jokingly, says to Kinger, don't go abstracting on me. And Kinger kind of stares back blankly, and Kane turns away, still looking at him. Is like, no, seriously, before he disappears. And then we get a sort of montage of an unknown amount of time passing as Kinger just wanders the circus all by himself, alone, slowly.
So I do think it's, well, into the cellar you go. Kane is so matter of fact when they put her down there that I'm sure it's almost maybe like a form of gaslighting for Kinger, where it's like, oh my gosh, he's acting like this is normal. Am I crazy for being so hurt? Is this a normal reaction? But I kind of have different theories on Kinger, and they keep saying, oh, Kinger's crazy, yada, yada, yada. And I think it could be some form of like disassociation, trying to protect himself. But I almost wonder, they never call it different personalities, but if it could be dissociative identity disorder, you have the actual true self, and then you have the more eccentric, I'm going to say, character that everybody knows. And like maybe it's a dual personality thing, but also it could just be a fracture where he's depersonalizing from the circus. I don't know. But I have always been curious if it was that he has two distinct personalities in order to cope with the trauma.
And then, as Kinger happens to wander close to the main stage, Ragatha appears. She's confused, afraid, and calls out to her friends, and she's making the motions as if she's trying to remove the headset. Kinger tries to talk to her, and she's confused and asks who he is, but Kinger can't seem to recall, and that is when Kane appears, surprised and delighted to see another human has arrived, and reminds Kinger of his name as he's talking to Ragatha. And Kane rushes off to make preparations for more humans, leaving the very confused Ragatha to stumble forward into Kinger's arms. And she's confused, and Kinger reassures her it's all going to be right. He promises he's going to help her.
I actually got the impression that Kinger got his name in that moment, that I don't think he had a name before this, which I think is really interesting. And it makes me wonder how quickly people were abstracting in the beginning. I also think it's really interesting that we see Ragatha pulling at her head, just like Pomni. And I know Zubul mentions that they had a headset on too at one point, but you can see the pattern. See the pattern growing with them. But yeah, Kinger definitely, I know I said in another episode that he takes on an authoritarian role, like the fatherly figure. And so him saying, hey, I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to do this, I think it gives him a sense of purpose to watch out for everybody. And that's why he keeps getting put in those roles.
And as Kinger asks Ragatha if she remembers her name, we snap to the present where Ragatha is sitting, and Pomni calls out, Ragatha, are you okay? And Ragatha is unsure how to answer that. And everyone is gathered recovering from the events at the secret terminal. And as they're all processing, Jax works up the nerve to begin saying, I told you so, but Zubul cuts him off and calls out that his actions kind of made it clear that he was intent on trapping them within the circus. But Jax shoots back that's like, it doesn't matter, that was all a trick. No sense of worrying about it. And surprisingly enough, Gangle speaks up to agree with him. saying that there's no real point in arguing anymore because they'll just hurt each other. So now they just need to focus on being here for them, for everyone.
And the type of emotion that Jax is showing in this, like when I do paperwork and notes or I talk about clients' moods and things, is apathetic. Apathy. Literally does not care one way or the other. He's very calm. Why does it matter? It wasn't real anyway, so why does it matter? And I think that that was infuriating more to Zubul than if Jax had actually fought or said, "What? Yeah, I did it. What do you think?" Da 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 da. Because I think it symbolized that there was no hope anymore. They were never going to get out of here. And I think that that's really where Zubul's anger came from. Um, but I think then Gangle stepping in, it's like, yeah, okay, this didn't work. We have to stick together, though. Like, yeah, there might not be hope that we can escape, but there's hope that we're here together. And that's kind of what I took from that.
Yep, and Gangle's comments work to defuse Zubul. So, and Pomni also steps in to suggest that they give up on trying to find a way to leave. That it's an impossible goal that they need to stop chasing, and they need to focus on each other and to just live. And this is, Zubul has trouble, coming to terms with this. Giving up on their hopes and dreams, and remarking that they wanted to go out there and make their mark on the world. But Gangle speaks up to reassure them and says that they've made a mark on her life. So and Zubul sits next to her, and they share a cry and hug.
And I think that that's something that is really important to remember just in everybody's day-to-day life. I think even like with us doing this YouTube channel, right? Cool. If you guys click and watch and we get some money later on, whatever, that'd be great. Cool. But I'm doing this for fun. And if I say something that helps somebody or makes them think that, hey, maybe I should see a therapist, that's also great. And it can be frustrating in my line of work because you have people who come in, you can clearly see that they need help and they're willing to take a little, but they're not willing to make all the changes that they need to. However, it really makes a big difference when you have people that say, I mean, I can think of one client right now who keeps telling me, like, you know what? I feel like I lost everything in my life and you stuck by me the whole time. And I cannot thank you enough for doing that, right? Oh my gosh, that's a wonderful feeling. So again, it feels hopeless. It feels like they're stuck here, but recognizing just how much they care about each other and the marks they're making on each other. So again, I love that, you made a mark on my life. It's such a really sweet line. Oh my gosh, sorry. This episode's so good. I may actually like episode 8 a little bit better than I like 9.
Yeah, Gangle can be perceptive. She just rarely has the courage to speak up.
Well, I think it's not even that. I think it's we talk all the time about how Gangle has the masks and hiding behind the mask and doing, literal masking. Gangle here is just being honest, not hiding anything, just saying how she feels.
And with that, Pomni and the others all agree that they're in this together to the end, and this includes Jax, no matter what. In fact, it is Zubul who makes the point to call out to Jax that he is included. They want him around, and they don't want him to, wander off on his own in his misery and abstract. To which, Jax seems, first he seems like a little annoyed, but then he falls back into his couch and laughs like, yeah, like I'd be one to extract, ha ha.
And I feel like Jax is kind of the quintessential avoidant personality. I can't remember if we've talked about attachment theory in earlier episodes, but there's this theory that there are 4 different types of attachment styles. You have secure, which is, hey, no, I am very secure in our relationship, how we are. And it doesn't have to be romantic, it can be friendships or family. Anxious is always worried, like they depend on others. And avoidant, which is what Jax is, almost like it's a fear. If somebody has to depend on me, I cannot take that pressure of somebody needing me or counting on me to do things. And I think that when they constantly are saying, "Yeah, we're in this with you," Jax is like, "Nope, can't do that. I cannot have people that close. I cannot do this." And that's where a lot of his insecurities and jokes come in. And then fourth type, which does not come in that often, is disorganized. It's when you display both anxious and avoidant. I have so many people tell me that that's what they are. I guarantee you that they aren't, because only 10% of the population is that.
So then the scene changes. We are with Kane in his office. He is loudly complaining that the humans don't seem to appreciate his efforts, and they just seem to hate him more the more he tries to do for him. Bubble is starts off a little bit reassuring and trying to boost his confidence, but as Kane goes on, Bubble comes increasingly antagonistic and seems to be, providing voice to his doubts. Then we get, Kane is growing more frustrated with Bubble and popping them as they appear and say, hurtful things. But then one appears in his face and very pointedly looks him in the eyes and says, "You really were the lesser of the two. You ruined this."
And I know we were talking before episode 9 came out and we went to go see it at the movie theaters that you had seen this theory that Bubble was the blue AI or, was the actual villain or whatever. But when I saw this scene specifically, I think Bubble, and I think we said it in another episode, like Bubbles is Kane's conscience. Like, hey, this is going to happen. This is what my inner thoughts are. This is what I want you to say, and then Bubble will say it, and then I feel great again because it's affirmed who I am. So all of this negative talk, I'm trying to think, it's like they hate you or like they never really enjoyed this or they, all these different things that Bubble says. And it just made me think of people who have a lot of not always literal voices. I think it's important when I tell people about like a negative self talk. It's not that you're actually hearing voices, but you might have a thought that is just so destructive or negative toward yourself and you really don't feel you have control over it. I feel like that's what Bubbles was in this scene. But it also confirms my theory this entire time of Kane's fear of abandonment. Do they really want to leave me? Do they really not want to stay? Like, he keeps kind of repeating it over and over.
Well, we get even more of it as Kane snaps and he goes like full god complex. They're not going to leave him. They're not going to abstract because he will not let them. In fact, he's going to put them in their place. And then, as soon as he's done letting out his rage and glitchy electric fury, he adjusts his tie and seems to return to normal and says, "Let's get this show on the road." But, he's still got a few glitches.
So, yeah, we talk about green flags and red flags. Green flags, like, oh, this is such a good behavior. It shows that this is a person who tends to have healthy habits or do good things. And red flags are, oh, you should probably leave immediately. Yeah, Kane is the like quintessential abusive partner in this scene. They're not going to leave me. I'm not going to let this happen. They need to learn. I'll show them. I'll make the, and I'm just like, whoa, okay. Yeah, no, this is the conversation that I have with clients where they say their partner has started to say these things. I'm like, uh-huh. Okay. Do we have a safety plan? Do we know how to get out of this situation if we need to? Where could you go to be, are you safe going home? And some of my clients look at me like I'm crazy when they're like, well, no, I mean, he doesn't mean it, or no, she wouldn't do anything. I'm like, yeah. That's like the first step, in my opinion, before like actual physical abuse happens, is I will not let this happen. It's like that you can't control other people.
All right, so then the camera takes us back to the group of humans consoling each other. There is a minor tremor as the circus shakes, and then suddenly Kane appears to them, and he's got a brand new adventure just ready to go. But Zubul and Pomni quickly cut him off with complaints and questions. Kane immediately dismisses them, saying he doesn't have to answer anything, and he doesn't have to entertain their drama. It's adventure time. But they keep it up, so he gets a bit more forceful in his rejection as he goes on and on talking about all the effort he puts into it that they do not seem to appreciate. So once he's done talking about his efforts and everything he's done for them, he menacingly finishes by saying that he has an adventure for them and they should consider going on it.
The way he says that, and I believe you should consider taking it, or whatever the line is, the way he says it, I'm just like, ooh, chills. Nope, that's danger. No. But I thought it was really interesting that once again, you can kind of see it in this picture, like the group is together, they confront Kane together, but Jax is like, yeah, I'm going to step out of this. I'm going to step away from this. And I don't think it's because he's trying to distance himself from the group in order to avoid Kane's wrath. I think he's doing it just because he doesn't know what else to do, and he's just kind of in this freeze mode and watching what Kane is doing.
So, in response to his very strong suggestion that they consider going on his adventure, Zubul decides to ask, "What if we refuse?" And this causes Kane to turn down the lights and set the stage and break into song. And as it begins, Pomni is dreading what she senses is coming. And Kane starts the song, "Who's Running the Show?" And it is awesome. I love it. I watch it on YouTube almost daily. But, it is all about how he is in charge and that complaining is useless since they have no power and their only option is to play his games. The sequence is just full of Kane enacting violence upon them through a myriad of ways as he belittles them and lords his power over them. And then we get closer to the end where he is literally forcing them to dance to his tune. And a bunch more violence before they're all dropped into a pile and blown up. And they are in bits and pieces and slowly trying to put themselves back together. And then Kane just snaps his fingers and they're all sitting in before him. He's like, all right, now that's over. Let's get this started. He summons the portal and they all look very unnerved as they turn to go inside.
Yeah, now Nox is obsessed with this song, guys. Like, literally, our kid will sing along to it whenever it's on the screen, and I'm just like, okay, well, that's fun. It is a cute song. I say cute. It is a good song. I also think that it's really interesting, and I think I've started to become a lot more sensitive to it just because of how long I've been in the field and the certain areas I've worked in the field. When you start to see certain changes in behavior, you know something is about to happen. You know something is probably going to go wrong. It doesn't always have to be a negative, but that look on Pomni's face of like, oh, Kane is kind of making this about him now. It's always been about him and doing adventures and doing what's best for them, but now it was a no. You're going to listen to me and you're going to like it. Such a big change. I think she saw it coming. But then what I also think is interesting / scary, I don't know. I have a lot of emotions about this. All of the violence that Kane enacts in this little musical number tend to be very cartoonish. Like, I think he blows up Gangle and turns her into like a balloon animal. I know he smashes Pomni and like smudges her. I think he rips apart Ragatha like a dog with a toy. Anyway, all of it is super cartoony, super Looney Tunesy type violence. And I think that it's supposed to make us think like, oh, haha, isn't this cute? Like, it's cartoon violence. But these people still feel pain. They feel these things that are happening to them. It's, again, the mind of the abuser who's like, oh, okay, I barely pushed you. And it's like, yeah, no, there's a hole in the wall. What do you mean you barely pushed me? So I think again, this whole scene, it's really interesting to see how charismatic he is and how he's doing all this, but showing the actual abusive behaviors that he has toward the group.
So days pass. The group is returning from yet another adventure. They're looking beaten and, they're barely holding together. I mean, Zubul literally falls apart. Ragatha's rolled up into a small little, carpet thing. Jax is there with his eyes dangling out. And as they're returning, Kane is no longer congratulating them. He is belittling them. He is insulting their performance, and yeah, it's definitely a change in tune.
Yeah, camera makes it like really passive and like, wow, I can't believe that you guys missed that. It was completely obvious. What are you, a bunch of idiots or something like that? And now we're getting into the emotional and verbal abuse. And again, people think, oh my gosh, you are so stupid. I hate you. Well, they were just joking because they said it in such a happy manner. It's like, no, that's not how that works. Words hurt. And the abuse and the look, I am higher than you, I am mightier than you is kind of what's continuing here.
And then we also have Kane grabs Kinger and warps away. And just a few short seconds later, as the others are recovering, Kane reappears, plops Kinger down, who has been diced into pieces.
He shredded me.
Yep. Kane then warps away, and Kinger just coldly comments, like, yeah, he shredded me. And we get the exasperation of both, Ragatha and Jax is like, I can't handle this anymore. We're going to lose our minds. And with Kane gone, Pommy just suggests, getting out of the open and finding somewhere to stay. So we go to the cafe. And it's here that they're musing is like they're discussing, is Kane going to get bored? Is he going to run out of ideas? And his problem is like, he's not human. We don't know. And Pomni's like, well, we got to take our rest when we can get it because we never know when he's going to do something. And right in that moment, right as she's about to take a bite of his sandwich, she is warped away. Conversation takes a second to continue without her, and then she appears once again full of knives. And the others are concerned about her, but she puts up a strong, front as she goes back to her seat, eats her sandwich, and pulls the knives out.
And nobody even, like, when she gets taken, go, where'd she go? Or, oh my gosh, oh no, not Pomni. Or, like, even with Kinger, or, like, when Kinger comes back and does the, oh, he shredded me. And they're like, oh my gosh, Pomni, are you? I'm fine. Like, all those sorts of things. They don't even react anymore. So I think it's interesting, Nox, when you said a few days have passed. I think it's been longer. They've actually started to become so used to this abuse that they've just accepted it. And they don't even react to it anymore. They don't even fight it. And I also think, right, still with the power and control thing, he's abducting them randomly to torture them, essentially, just to say, hey, remember who's boss? Oh, yeah, me. Listen to me. So, yeah, I think that that's also really scary that now they're just like, yep, nope, he's just going to really hurt us. Okay.
So as Pomni eats her sandwich and removes the knives, she spies behind the counter a bucket, and she gets an idea. She runs over and places it on Kinger's head, and with Ragatha backing her up, she explains that he becomes more lucid when he's in darkness, so they have to give him a little bit of time, and then they'll be able to talk to him. And it does indeed take a little while as they wait. A lucid Kinger, calls out, and Pomni greets him. And they begin asking him, how can they deal with Kane? So Kinger sets into explaining what CNA was doing, and that they were essentially, he was ahead of a project to create a generative AI. However, he wasn't actually the brains of the project. That was a gentleman named that they came to call Scratch. They cannot remember his name from outside the circus. But this guy was a genius, and he's laid the groundworks, and the other members of the team could work off that. And as this is being explained, Jax is kind of looking a little bit frantic, and then he runs out saying he's going to go and distract Kane. Pomni stops him to make him swear he will come back, and Jax begrudgingly does. But once he gets outside, sorry, I forgot one. Once he gets outside, he leans over a railing, and he is breathing heavily. He is not looking so good, and he makes the comment of like, "Oh my God, this is real." And things are getting worse for Jax.
Well, like I said at the end of the last episode, 7, where Jax hits the button to stay, I think Jax really doesn't want the memories that he has to be real, because then that means that he's been through a lot. Right. And so hearing Kinger say like, "Oh yeah, no, this is this and this is and that happened and yada yada," it's like, okay, crap. I really could go back to that, and I don't want to. That is scary. But also I wanted to mention that we talk about Kinger being in the dark, and we talk about how the people who are abstracted are calmer in the dark. I think it's just minimizing input, and so they're able to focus more on like what their goal is and what they need to do, or like with the abstractions, they're not lashing out at everything. It's just darkness. And so it's just, okay, I'm going to be calm. I actually sometimes wonder if Scratch was that dog that we saw in the beginning, the one that gets super mad at Kane.
Yes, Scratch is the dog. We also, Queenie is Kinger's wife. Then there is, I believe, one of the other ones is a gentleman called Wormo. And I don't know if the other two got names.
Yeah, since Scratch was the one in charge, it makes sense that he'd get mad like, "Hey, what the heck? I'm a dog?"
But yeah, back inside the cafe, they ask Kinger, how do they stop Kane? And Kinger, he comes up with the idea that it's like they can manipulate the circus just like Kane does, except for Kane is much better at it because he is an AI. So it'll take a lot more effort for them to do it. And as he's explaining this, Ragatha recalls in the episode They All Get Guns how Kinger conjured a butterfly to essentially change the rules of the game and restore her health. So the idea, when they're like, okay, it's like, well, how do we, put this into effect? Kinger's like, okay, if I could get a computer console, I could, access Kane's code and try to like trap him or shut him off. And when asked where they could get one, Pomni knows exactly where she could get one.
And I think what follows here is actually really, really interesting, because it mimics the very first episode when Pomni is going through the circus and accidentally finds the door almost exactly, other than her affect. Right, the very first episode, she's panicking. What is happening? Oh my God. Ah! But in this one, she's just calmly walking around. She calmly looks in the mirror. She's knows what she's doing.
Well,
she's
get
really
to that because
in.
there's a little bit before we get to her in the offices, but she does leave to go and find She does leave to go and find the computer, and she comes across the mirror, and despite everything, it's still just you. Although it's real fun to compare this shot to the original from the first episode to see how much the rendering has improved. But she does. Right. And it's kind of one of the things I'm wondering if she conjures the door, because there's a lot of things that happen throughout this show that is like, wait, what was that? And it's like, are they just subconsciously conjuring and not even aware of it? Like, for example, in the episode They All Get Guns, those cans that Jax and Pomni shoot at were not there when they were walking, and then all of a sudden when Jax needed them, poof, they're there. So I think there's probably instances of people subconsciously conjuring, and in the first episode you had Pomni's desire to find the exit, and the exit was a thing that existed because Kane created it, but she summoned it to her. And then she, having experience doing this, did so again here.
Yeah, and I think that first episode, I need to get out. I need to get out. Where's an exit? Where's an exit? Oh, look, an exit. Cool. But this time she was looking for the exit not to actually escape, but to find the computer. So yeah, I think absolutely they're the ones who are conjuring these things.
But as Pomni enters through the exit door, we cut back to, Jax is indeed distracting Kane. Kane is flossing using Jax's stretched out neck and manages to conjure a car out of the vortex within his mouth. And poor Jax, he is stretched out like 30 feet long, poor guy. And as Kane discards him and he's getting bored, this is when Zubul, Ragatha, and Gangle catch up, and they're going to help distract Kane by going down a list of all these compliments that they've got ready for him. And Kane is, at first, sounds delighted to hear it, but before Ragatha can even begin, he's like, you know what, I'm bored. We're going to do bowling. And they turn into bowling pins, and he pulls out a sniper rifle to shoot a bowling ball at them. And the funny part being that it hits Ragatha and Zubul as it flies by, and then it flies back to hit Gangle. And then we get the ridiculous, strike animation.
Now that was a bit of nostalgia, the strike animation. My God, I remember that in the bowling alleys. Yeah, I did a lot of bowling, people. That was kind of my sport. Again, I'm nerdy, so yeah. But again, I am going to inflict as much pain and punishment on you as I need to. There was really no reason to even be mean to them. They were actually being pretty, okay, I'm bored with this. Let's do this. And now I'm going to torture you because I think it's funny. Ha 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 ha. Man, Kane just gets mean.
Then we cut back to Pomni, and she's navigating the maze of offices and exit doors, getting a little annoyed as she continues on. Maybe she didn't completely recall the path she took, and just now sinking in how long it was and how much of a rush she was in before. But she does eventually find her way to the computer. She lingers looking at the headset, but then tremors start hitting. So she rushes up, grabs the computer, the keyboard, mouse, the computer, and the monitor. And she takes it back to the circus.
Well, and I don't know if you have the image here too, where we actually see that headset that they keep talking about on my left. But it's the right to Pomni, left for me. You can see the headset there too. So this really is an exact replica of what their offices looked like. I also think of Pomni being like, oh, good God. Okay. I think she's like, okay, the first time, I was panicking and I kept looking. I know what I'm looking for now. Just can I go to the door, please? Come on.
But then we quickly cut back to the circus, and Kane is continuing to torment everyone. He's twisted them into this kind of modern art tree-shaped thing, but he doesn't like it, and he's quickly getting bored. So he disappears for a little bit, and then we switch to Pomni delivering the computer to Kinger within his pillar fort. He gets set up, and he says he's going to get started. He can use his imagination and conjuring just to make the things work and get connected, but he might need some time to actually get into Kane's code. So he sends Pomni back to distract Kane. Pomni heads off, and she when she arrives, Kane is he warped away, so she helps the others get back into proper shape because they had been like Kane smashed them up into a ball before he left previously. But then when Pomni shows up, Kane appears, grabs her, and he talks about how he's going to use her as part of the art project. But then as he gets started, he comments that, something feels off. And he felt like, the constant torture and all the adventures he's sending him on, he isn't feeling as fulfilled as he expected he would. And Ragatha tries to, encourage him. It's like, oh, if you just set your mind to it, I'm sure you'll come with some great new stuff. To which, Kane points out, like, no, I am putting my mind to it, and it's still not working. There's something missing. And he's looking around, and he's like, wait, where's Kinger? And this is when they set in. They're going to, try and lap more compliments onto him. And Kane is looking distracted. He's like, he's just going to wander off and find Kinger to where, and then Pomni flips the script. Compliments aren't working. Let's try insults. And they tear into him. Every single one of them takes a chance. They talk about how he doesn't listen. His games suck. And he's, we get some random comments like from Gangle saying you don't let us think outside the box, and they're driving us crazy. And this, yeah. Do you have any comments before we continue?
So all of my clients, I tell them there are no good or bad emotions. You just have emotions. Some don't feel pleasant sometimes, but you just have emotions. In my experience, there is no emotion more powerful than anger, rage, frustration. Let's just go all the things, do all the feelings wheels. And part of my job when I worked in the psychiatric inpatient, I was actually floor staff. It was while I was in school, so I didn't have my degree fully yet, but I worked there for a very long time. We would have kids who would start fighting and arguing, and we'd go in to try to de-escalate it. Like, okay, we're not swinging yet, so hey, why don't we come down, come sit over here with me, come do this, and then the kid behind me would start just, oh my God, well, you're such a fat, stupid piece of blah, blah, and I'm like, son of a crap. It's like I got somebody calm, and then as soon as that happens, all focus is on the person they're mad at. They are plowing through staff, they are taking me out, and I'm just like, if that kid could just shut up and let me de-escalate this, we would be fine. That's what happened here. Ooh, he's starting to get distracted, but you know what's going to make him focus? He's going to be mad at me. So he will focus on me. He will only want to hurt me. He's no longer going to care about Kinger. And to be honest, a lot of like police officers and things like that, when they're trying to get somebody to not pay attention to someone else, will do tactics like this.
All right. So do you want to handle these one at a time, or do you want to go all the way through?
Let's do one at a time. Because it was really funny when I do my little notes that help Nox figure out what images to use. We got to this point, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to write fast. Nope, can't write fast enough. Pause it. Okay, play. Pause it. Okay, play. I think Nox was going to kill me. I'm like, I'm sorry. I got to write this out.
All right, so Kane snaps. He stretches out as he's glitching. He's got a hand for each of them, and he grabs each of them up, and he's screaming in their faces, like, why do you torment me? I'm going to put all of you in your place. And he throws them each into their own little personal hells. And first up, we have Pomni. She sees a vision of Gummy Goo turned away from her. And she goes to reach out towards him, and he turns to face her, except for his face is significantly more detailed and demonic, and snarls at her. And when he turns towards her, the light goes out and she can no longer see him. But she hears him moving, and then she gets snapped. Alligator jaws grab her arm, and then another grabs her leg, and she gets knocked down, and they're circling around her. Yeah.
And I took this as Pomni is always wanting to help people. And I saw it as her being afraid that she is either going to help the wrong people or she's going to be betrayed by people who she has helped. That basically she's going to try and do everything to be good, but it's gonna backfire on her.
And next we cut to Ragatha. She is seated at the one end of a table, and a large shadowy figure that seems similar in form to her glares down at her with glowing eyes, and knives continue to fly at Ragatha, one piercing her chest, one piercing her eye. She tries to deflect one with her hand as the figure leans in closer.
What I also find interesting about this one, right? So obviously it's Ragatha's mom. They talk about how her mom is always about perfectionism and, very overbearing and all that sort of stuff. And so whether she's actually physically abused by her mother in the real world or if it's just emotional barbs. But what I think is interesting, and you can kind of see a little bit to the left here, but you have the people around the table who are the NPCs, right? And they also have stab wounds. So I wonder just how much, like, are these siblings? Is it people who maybe she was friends with who now they no longer come around? Just that isolated feeling, too, I think is there, that it's just her against her mom and nobody can help.
Then next we have Gangle. She is kneeling in the center of a circle of spinning paintings or artwork of her masks, showing mixed emotions as they spin around her, and then they slowly begin to melt, morphing into, freakish, stretched out faces, and then everything gets knocked over by an oncoming truck.
And so this is the scene. I know we talked about the fast food one about how she makes the line about this is a manic episode, and I was like, yeah, but that isn't mania because it needs to last. Da da da. This is the scene that kind of solidified for me that Gangle has a bipolar diagnosis. It shows the cycling faces. It shows the overwhelming darkness of the faces, like when they morph. And I recently saw an interview with what's his name? Alan Richson, the guy who plays Reacher, because apparently he has a bipolar diagnosis. And he was saying, most people have a 1 through 10 button. 1 is sad and 10 is happy. And you cycle through those. But people who have bipolar disorder tend to have negative 100 to 100, and they can only go in plus 10 buttons. So it's 10, 20, 30, 40, all that sort of stuff. So the emotions that kind of come through and the feelings that come through are incredibly intense. So that's where I saw with the way that it cycled so quickly and did all this that it made, the happiness all of a sudden to sadness. And then Knox and I have had conversations about whether Gangle fell in front of the bus, which I kind of thought because of the fourth episode, or whether she had actually tried to um, complete suicide. Um, and I think that this is the scene that it's like, hey, you know what? That's a very strong possibility that that's what she was doing. So it may have been, I don't know, manic episode. So she went in traffic and got hit. It could have been that the depression was so bad that she thought that could be what happened, or it could have been an accident. They never overtly say what happened. But yeah, this scene is kind of what made me think like she may have thought about hurting herself.
Then next we have Zubul. They stand atop a giant mound of spare parts that swirl around them and grab at them, all while swirling around them, holding up mirrors pointed at them.
And being swallowed up by the spare parts too, right? So I think it's one of those things about right, this one I feel like everybody was like, oh, that's kind of an obvious one, where it was the body dysmorphia, that they're not happy with how they look or who they are, and they don't want to be this version of themselves, but they're stuck being that version, and just how horrific that is for Zubul.
Then last we get Jax, who is, figures resembling Pomni, Ribbit, and Kaufmo swirl around him, laughing hysterically. Then 3 reach out to grab him, and they peel away his outer purple layer, revealing a kind of pathetic-looking yellow one under it. And he kind of tries to defend himself, cover himself up.
Well, and a lot of the even the motions, like how he tries to hold everything, he's afraid of people seeing the real him, mocking the real him. And to be honest, I feel like, again, the position that he holds his arms and how he's doing that, how violated he feels being forced to show the real him. Um, and so again, I think there's this vulnerability that he's afraid to show, and that it is going to cause people who he cares about to not stay with him. So even though he has the avoidant personality that we talked about, he really does want to have some of those friends there.
All right, and then we cut to Kinger, who's working frantically, hammering away at the keyboard. We see him coming across certain files. We see him getting error messages, and we see him getting warnings that are directly taunting him. But then we cut back to the group. They are pulled out by Cain, slammed down into the ground, and he's screaming at them. Why would they torment him? Why won't they just let him fulfill his purpose? And then we switch back to Kinger. Oh, you got some.
Sorry, I just wanted to say again, I know we've been talking about the cycle of abuse this entire time. I made him angry, so that's why I got hit. I should have done what she asked me to do, then I wouldn't have been kicked out of the house, or she wouldn't have thrown something at me, right? Why do you torment me? Yeah, they're making you mad, but man, you are choosing these actions. You are picking this fight. It is not on them. So sorry. I just wanted to say that because this entire episode is showing just how much of an abuser and perpetrator Cain is.
And then when it cuts back to Kinger, he is typing frantically. He's getting so many different error messages and warnings, and then images of Cain and Bubble pop up on the screen. He's typing frantically, and as more of his screen is getting obscured, he's kind of panicking, and then he accidentally fat fingers the delete button, which seems to trigger a full purge of Cain's AI program. Kinger actually swears he didn't mean to do that, but then the loading bar fills, and briefly Cain returns to normal. He seems to look around in shock, and he says, "Wait," and then he vanishes.
Yeah, so I have theories on this one, which is why you're all here, right? I know that there's a lot of thought about, right, he got led through the AI to purge Cain. And I'll go into this a little bit deeper when we get into this in episode 9. But I think that there are those two sides of Cain too who were fighting, and one of those sides is the one who actually guided all of this. So when it happened, Cain, I think, actually felt things leaving him, which was why he goes, wait, and then he's gone. What I find interesting, though, after I talked about how Bubbles is a form of Cain's conscience, so I keep wanting to say consciousness and not conscience. Bubbles is still there, and Bubbles actually remains there for a long time. Like, I think you can actually see it in the rest of the episodes, episode for 9. So yeah, I thought that was interesting.
The group doesn't get too long to react to Cain disappearing, though, because the entire circus seems to be hit with tremors, and then the environment begins to glitch out. Holes begin opening up in the floor, and one of them opens up under Kinger's pillow fort and takes the computer with it, and Kinger has to back away in order to not fall in with it. And then as the tremors settle, the group is looking around, and Kinger comes up to him to share the bad news, is that he accidentally killed Cain. And the group is stunned, and we get the immortal line from Zubul, where all they say is, "Holy shit." And after a second, everyone realizes that they said that without being censored.
which really makes me wonder, because some people have been making comments online that I've seen that, this is airing on a certain streaming platform other than YouTube, where they've marked this as TVPG, and it's like, oh yeah, what's gonna happen when you get to these episodes? Because they're already pretty dark, but now they can curse, so you might want to change that rating on there, guys.
Well, it's also a fun thing to mention that there was a lot of people who were upset that the censoring disappeared because they feared that this would become like other shows that became nothing but profanity. But fortunately, I don't think they actually swear much in the finale.
This might sound a little bit strange, but I do think about it is, hey, if you're not able to curse, then why are you going to keep trying? So now that they can curse, they're not used to cursing anymore. My mother scolds me because I tend to curse. I have a sibling who is definitely a potty mouth, like holy cow. And my mom is always saying, "Don't curse so much in your personal life, otherwise you'll curse in your professional." I've never done it. My sibling may have. But yeah, if you don't curse a lot, then you're not going to keep trying it later. So I think that kind of gets conditioned. That's the word, conditioned out of them.
All right, but that is it for episode 8. They go to credits after this, and then we had to wait weeks for the finale, unless you were watching this at the movie theater and then the finale was next. But any closing comments on episode 8?
The one thing that I wanted to add, which is what I tell clients a lot when they tell me they're the disorganized style of attachment. I know I keep saying Jax is avoidant. I do still feel like Jax does have a lot of the avoidant tendencies, but there's also a high possibility that he has anxious attachment. But he's so worried about people hurting him that he purposely self-sabotages himself so that they'll stay away. That's technically anxious attachment. I have clients who are like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm the disorganized." No, you do certain actions in order to protect yourself from being what you perceive will be abandonment or hurt later. That's technically anxious attachment. So, just wanted to say that because attachment is really interesting, and I think a lot more people are talking about it.
All right. So next, episode 9, remember, the finale begins, and it actually opens like the first episode did with that old CD-ROM game graphics with the title of the Amazing Digital Circus. Then as the camera zooms in and goes into the circus, there's no narration from Kane, no introduction, no appearance from Bubble. Then the camera swoops over the circus, and we go to the stage, and we see each member introduced like before with those sing-songy voices, except for each of the characters looks kind of terrified. And then we get to the end, there's no Kaufmo, there's Pomni. And then when we see the song continue, talking about playing day after day after day, it glitches and it repeats itself and gets a little distorted, and then it cuts back to the group.
Sorry, technical difficulties, aka animals barking. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of okay, hey, see, we're happy, but that last part where it's the day after, and it just spirals and turns gray, and oof, it just shows how much things have changed. And I feel like it almost gives a sense of dread as it happens.
All right, so the group is reacting, and Jax is the first. He calls on the others to blame Kinger for screwing it up because now they have nothing. They have no way of, finding a way out or anything. And Ragatha and Pomni both call on him to back off. To which Jax lashes out, is like, "You're taking his side when he screwed this all up for us?" It's like, but then Kinger will actually. Cuts them off, and he points out that when he was going through Kane's code, he found a folder full of brain scans. And he surmises that these are the brain scans that Scratch had been working on. and that Kane must have found a way to activate them. So, as it dawns on everyone what that means, Jax turns to congratulate Zubul, saying that they are out there making their mark on the world, and turns to Ragatha and saying that she gets to hang out with her mommy. And then it kind of, Jax turns around and realizes what that means to him, and Pomni is trying to comfort Ragatha, who kind of felt like she subconsciously knew all along what was going on, but it hurts when it's finally pointed out to them.
So before we talk about what they actually are, I think it's really interesting how mad Jax gets at Kinger when the group got really mad at him. Well, not the group, I guess just Zubul got really mad at him for hitting that button. Right? But he's like, but it wasn't real, so why does it matter? It wasn't real. Well, why does it matter? Well, they're not real. They are basically generated versions of people's memories and thoughts and that sort of stuff. They are completely, what's the word? Cybernetic AI? I don't know. They're amalgams. But I think that Jax realizing all of that and okay, hey, guess what? None of this is real, like actually legitimately real, like they're not actually people. And I think that really hits a nerve.
Yep. So the weird, roller coaster Jax went through with, realizing that this is real. This is not some delusion. This is not, your personal hell. Everything that happened to you before happened to you before. But then the realization that, well, all that was real, but you're not, and real you is out there somewhere living your real life. So with that realization sinking in, everyone starts to wander off, and Gangle reaches out for Zubul, and Zubul just plain doesn't react, and Gangle cries as she walks away and doesn't even have Zubul to comfort her.
Which I think this scene is kind of important too, because I think Zubul is having a normal shock reaction, right? Just staring straight ahead. I am not even. Remember when I talked about the garage door, that it shuts and nothing goes in, nothing comes out. It's just whoop, nothing, blank slate. Zubul's having that reaction. They're having to figure out exactly how they feel. But like when Zubul was having their moment in the last episode and Gangle says, "You've made a mark in my life," they were able to support each other. Gangle reaching out to Zubul and Zubul not reacting makes, I think, Gangle wonder, oh, am I not that important? Does this not do I not actually matter to Zubul? And I think that's really why she cries. Yeah, this whole thing is scary, but oh my gosh, am I not enough?
All right. So then Pomni is kind of at a loss as what to do as she sees everyone wandering off and kind of shutting down. She sees Kinger getting to work. He is conjuring up shapes to repair holes in the floor. And she watches him for a little bit, and he kind of gives her some instruction on how to conjure with him, and she makes an attempt, and as it fails, she starts blaming herself for how things have turned out. And as the tears well up in her and she's cradling herself, she makes the comment is like, I just wanted everything to be all right, and am I stupid for even trying?
Which I really like that line. Am I stupid for even trying? I think that it's important for people to take actions that they're not going to regret. Hey, I want to apply for this job, but God, I mean, actually, can I even get this job working for the state? Or could I even get this job that pays me $100,000? Okay, well, you can apply and not get picked, and that's disappointing, or you can apply and maybe make it. Which would you regret not doing it, or would you regret doing it? And that's the thing. I just wanted to make it better. I feel like I made it worse, but I don't think if Pomni had stood by and done nothing, she would have so much regret in her life when things went bad.
So Kinger is trying to comfort Pomni, and he points out that he recalls is like of all the people he's encountered in the circus, she was the quickest to adapt. And as she points out that she was a nervous wreck, he's like, yes, we all were, but others took weeks and sometimes months to adapt to it, while she did so in just a couple of days. And that this is a testament to her strength, and that together they can fix. He makes the comment, we can't fix everything. Well, not with the way things have turned out, but we can fix what we can. And Pomni points out that this is very reminiscent of comments he'd made back in the Mildenhall Manor. And unfortunately, Kinger does not remember that, but he says if he's said it before and he's saying it again, that must mean it's true. So, we're in this together. Let's fix what we can.
And I think that that's really important. Right now, I have a client who I'm seeing for complex PTSD type symptoms, and our sessions are a lot of, I don't know if I can do this. I want to fix it, but I don't know how this will work. I don't know how to feel better, and I'm scared I never will. And so we have to keep talking, and I have to keep saying, hey, I can't guarantee how long this will take. I can't say how it will work for you, but we need to try. It's something that we need to do, because if we don't do anything, it won't get better. And so we just have to kind of keep reminding ourselves of that in the session. So I feel like that's exactly what Kinger is saying, right? Hey, yeah, this sucks, but if we don't do anything, we're really not going to get into a better place.
So then time passes as Kinger is instructing Pomni on how to conjure, and she steadily gets better, and we see the others watching from afar. But as Kinger and Pomni are conjuring up repairs together, one by one the others approach, and they receive instruction on how to conjure, and they start, talking and laughing and getting together and fixing things up. But Jax continues to watch from afar. And as more time passes, Jax does eventually approach Pomni as if he wants to say something. But in the moment, he turns and walks away, muttering, "Never mind." And then we get a voiceover from Pomni that remarks that she should have pried more then.
And I will say this, and I think that it's a very common misconception. Generally, when we're talking about people who are wanting to hurt themselves, I didn't want to give them the idea. I didn't want to ask and then they don't talk to me about anything. I didn't, well, you know what? Ask. If you have a concern, hey, are you okay? What can I do to help you? You don't seem to be in a good place. Can we do this? And I really do hear Pomni saying, I wish I had pried more. I wish I had done more, because that's something that you hear from a lot of people after the loss of a loved one when they have a death by suicide.
So then, Jax abstracts, and they watch him rampaging around. Ragatha is stunned, and Zubul is angry. And then as Zubul is venting their frustrations, we see that Gangle is curled up, looking sad, but then questions out loud why she seems unable to cry over Jax's fate. Zubul seems to believe that Gangle might be alluding to the fact that she feels responsible for this, but there's probably something a little deeper going on.
and I think it is one of those things, and I think we get that scene later, so I won't spoil that. But this feeling of disbelief that she has, like, why can't I cry for him? I think that we're supposed to assume that she can't cry for him because of how mean he's been to her. But I think for her, it's just that disbelief that this person who has been here for so long is gone. It's kind of that denial stage of grief that people talk about with Kubler-Ross.
So now Ragatha dredges up the memories of her friendship with Jax. And she remembers a previous friend who abstracted, but she's having difficulty recalling the name. It takes her a moment and she remembers. Her name was Ribbit. And then she shares that Jax had sworn her to never say the name again. And at the moment, she agreed to it. And now she's wondering that if she hadn't, would things have turned out differently?
And this is the bargaining part of grief. Like, oh my gosh, if I had done this if this had been like that, would this have been better? Would he be okay? And I think sometimes we take on a lot of responsibility for what happens to other people, even when really there's nothing that they could have done. There's nothing that, I say nothing, they assume there's nothing that they could have done. I'm going to say that there probably isn't, but who knows? Right. So I think that that's why she keeps going, wait, what happened? And she just can't remember. And that's more frustrating to her because she doesn't have answers.
So Ragatha, looking at how things turned out, she suggests that this makes her a terrible friend for what she did. And Pomni quickly points out that Ragatha is the first friend she made her, and she still thinks she's, her best friend. And as Ragatha is about to thank her, Pomni pulls her into a big old hug.
So science lesson, maybe? When we are touched by somebody that we love, or we touch somebody that we love, our body releases this hormone called oxytocin. They call it the love hormone. Now, it's not like that where it manages libido or anything like that, but it provides a sense of comfort and relief to have that interaction. That's actually why it helps to pet animals when you're in it, because it lets your body release oxytocin. So, man, the power of a hug, do not underestimate it. If you're like, I'm just in a mood, I don't know, somebody gives you a hug, you might start crying, but that's your body releasing stuff. So, just saying.
All right, so they share a good cry and a hug, talk about how much they appreciate each other, and then they begin to ponder what they're supposed to do next. And Pomni makes a plan. Ragatha is going to take care of the others, and then Pomni is going to go and deal with Jax.
And once again, I think that this goes into the little nightmares that they had at the end where Pomni wants to help everybody, but you know what? She's going to do it on her own, because then if something happens, it'll happen to her. It won't hurt other people. Which you don't need to be a hero. You have support systems. That's why they're there. Be with them.
All right, so Pomni sets off on her own, and she's following Jax around as he rampages and goes through the abandoned circus. And she has a gun. Yeah, she picks the gun and follows him to the corridor that their rooms are in. And as he notices her, he charges towards her, and she uses the gun to shoot out all the lights and bathe them in darkness. And she's presented with the abstracted Jax. The only light is the one cast by his bizarre eyes. He seems calm, and she pulls him in for a big old hug. And at that, She seems to get pulled through that colorful kaleidoscopic vision we saw before. She sees his figure just in the distance as she's pulled into this, colorful world. And then she lands in this strange, darkened room that's got weird colors and 5 doors, one of which is boarded up.
And I think one of them has an X on it too, right? So it's like, okay, is this a dead version of Jax? What does the boarded up one look like? But again, power of hug, oxytocin gets you closer.
So Pomni goes and tries the first door. And this seems to take her to a world where Ragatha is gone. We see Jax at the door. And the Pomni of this world is reaching out to him much in the same way Ragatha is known to do. And Jax responds by pouncing on her and grabbing her about the neck and strangling her. And he does so without saying a word, and he only releases her right as she starts to black out. She is recoiling from him in fear and backs away, and he's brushing it off, pointing out that they can't die. So what's the problem? And Pomni runs away in fear, and then this version of Jax turns to look at our Pomni, and then the door slams shut in her face.
So I took this version of Jax as to be the side that likes to push people to the edge, make them uncomfortable, make them feel less than him because of some of his insecurities that are going to come up.
So Pomni goes and tries a second door. And this one seems to open onto a world that Zubul is gone. And Gangle is wearing the plastic mask and is leading work to hold Zubul's funeral. Jax makes an appearance wearing the maid outfit, and when questioned, he says he's wearing it to celebrate Zubul's spirit by being all gender freaky. Gangle, accuses him of making fun of Zubul, to which Jax quickly shoots back, well, isn't that what you're doing? This flusters Gangle, and she collapses and remarks that she hates Jax. Jax responds by getting flirty with her and offering her a key to his room, and invites her to join him there after the funeral. This really flusters Zubul and gets everyone watching her, to which she loudly screams at everyone to get back to work. And a disturbed Pomni slowly closes the door and backs away.
And so the second version, right, I think, you know what, this is me. I'm going to make people uncomfortable sometimes. I'm going to take power in a room by saying what I want to say and doing what I want to do. Right. And I think that the confidence level in this Jax is also maybe why Pony's like, what the actual heck is happening here? Right. Because I think that Jax going out in the maid outfit would have eventually led to some form of embarrassment, kind of like in the baseball game.
Pomni then goes and tries the boarded up door, but it is too sturdy for her to get through, so she instead goes and tries one of the other available doors. This seems to show a world where Gangle is gone, and an enraged Zubul accuses Jax of being responsible and with chainsaw hands charges at him. This Jax is calls on cartoony powers to change the backdrop into a cliff to drop Zubul off of it. And he goes, oh darn, shucks, I'm such a wacky guy. And yeah, the Pomni closes that door as well. Actually, that door closes on her face, and has a note on it that says "Out to lunch."
And I think this is Jack's "I'm funny, damn it" side. His humor about the situation, kind of the violence that's tied toward it too. I think that that's what this door was all about.
And the last door available to her leads to the lunch room, question mark, because there she sees the facets of Jax. We have the maid one, the homicidal one, and the goofy one who she just saw, as well as the final one who is chained to a piano and is playing.
Well, and as also being abused, right? Because I could play the piano, and they throw a beer bottle. Well, not very well, obviously. They're not nice to him. They keep him there. But I think, again, that's the hiding something about yourself, right? Like, oh, I'm super artistic and I play the piano and all that stuff. And it's like, hey, that's nerdy. And you can't tell people that sort of stuff because then they're going to use it against you. So be one of these other three that has power over others and who doesn't take any guff from anybody.
So yes, these facets of Jax are verbally and occasionally physically abusing each other. The one at the piano receiving the brunt of the abuse. As they bicker, Pomni is pointing to the room she just came from, and she questions if those are what Jax thinks of the others, and pointed out that it's kind of crazy. It's not meant to make sense, and they each have their own reasons, but it essentially stated that they reject reality and substitute their own.
Because then they have control of their environment. They know what's happening. And plus, we've had so many times where Pomni has tried to talk sense to Jax, and it hasn't worked. Like, I was kind of like, why would it work now?
And the amusing part is that as they offer this explanation, the boarded up door nearby jiggles just slightly, and it elicits a very loud scream from all of them to shut up.
And notice the pupils too, right? Because Jax's eyes change a lot on this show. The thin slits like that is fear, right? So the shut up, that's not angry Jax. That is, I am scared Jax. So I was always kind of curious what was back there.
Oh, there are theories. So Pomni asks where the real Jax is, and the Looney Tunes Jax points out that she's not going to get anywhere asking questions like that. So Pomni just kind of continues on to try the door at the back of the room, but she finds it locked and needs a key. So she asks them if they could spare the key for her. The maid Jax immediately says no, and if I did have it, I wouldn't give it to you. And as he goes into a shockingly misogynist insult, Pomni throws a bottle at him, which causes him to vanish into a poof of smoke. The others begin vanishing as well, leaving only the last one playing the piano, who Pomni notices is actually chained to the piano, and he wordlessly produces a key and hands it to her before he vanishes.
Well, because again, this is a part that Jax hid away because he felt it made him vulnerable. This is a side that's like, hey, no, I want to make connection. I want to be there with people. Please save me. And I mean, I think that the different parts disappearing is because they're all being drawn into one single, the regular Jax, the full Jax. So I really felt like that was something called a grounding technique. So when I have clients who are experiencing panic attacks or severe anxiety and stuff like that, and they're all in their head, I recommend that they use something called a grounding technique to try and bring them back into the present. Like, don't focus so much on the future or don't focus so much on the past. Um, my go-to that I like to give people is hold an ice cube. Hold it in your hand and the shock of it, like, oh, that's cold, and oh my, it's dripping on me and it burns, and all of a sudden you're focusing on your hand, you're not focusing on your thoughts. So I think that this fragmentation of Jax, when she throws the bottle, it's making him start to focus more. So they're all turning back into one person.
So with the key, Pomni opens the door, and we're seeing sort of like this squiggly, staticky thing that's got the abstracted Jack's eyes interspersed between them, and then we get visions. We see the real world visions we saw from Jax in the previous episode 7, where we see the neighborhood street, except for this time we're hearing someone running, and then we hear the car as we see the vision of the driving down the road at night, and then we get the vision of someone sleeping in kind of a sleeping bag bedding of some kind outside near a brick wall. And then as these change again, we see what appears to be when Jax first arrived in the circus. He's looking at his hands, and then he feels his face. But we see that Kaufmo, Ragatha, Kinger, and Ribbit are there to greet him. And quickly we see that Ribbit is the one who's helping him adjust. And as he's commenting on how stupid he looks, everyone's pointing like, "Oh well, we all got something stupid, but you get used to it." And he's quickly bonding with. Mostly with Ribbit and Kaufmo, a little bit of Ragatha every now and then, because it seems that Ragatha is offering to take him on adventures, but not Ribbit's got it covered. And we're getting a very friendly atmosphere between the members of the circus.
Well, because I'm sure Jack saw this as a new start, right? Like, hey, these are new people. They don't know me. I won't be judged by them. I'm just going to chill and relax and just hang out. And this will actually be kind of cool for me, right? So I think that's a lot of why we don't see him being super angry and upset.
And we see multiple friendly exchanges as Jax and Ribbit are growing closer. They're exchanging friendly banter, friendly prodding and insults. There's the remark about how much they swear and telling jokes and all that. But then we get to a night where they're in Ribbit's room. And Ribbit takes the moment to talk about regrets. And, Jax pointed out, obviously he has regrets. Everyone has regrets. It's like breathing air. But then Ribbit means, something real, something, you'll never be able to make up for. And this is when she confesses that she's estranged from her religious parents. They were strong believers. She was not. So when she moved out, she completely cut ties with them. And now she regrets, she never got back in touch. And now she'll never get the chance. And turn up. Oh, I think OBS just had an issue. Let's give it a second. Okay, it's reconnected. Never mind. I apologize. Hopefully that wasn't out too long. But here we have Ribbit and Jax. Jax is working up the courage to share the story of his family. So he begins talking about his father. His father was always distant, and it made Jax feel like he was a disappointment. And then one day his father just eventually left. This left behind him with his mother, who initially he felt like he always got along with better, but once his father left, his mother seemed to measure him up to his father, both negatively and positively, and that with he was like his father, she hated him for it. And if he wasn't like his father, she hated him for that as well. And it confused him. And she, seemed to be taking the absence of his father out on him, regardless of what he did. So then Jax says one day it all got to be too much. And he made the mistake of sharing something with his mother, which he thought was going to get her to back off. Realize, he has his own shit to deal with and needs to give him space. But the result was her laughing at him and insulting him in demeaning ways and berating him and all. He was feeling terrible. And then at the height of it, she confusingly hugged him. And he was so confused by this that he reacted violently. He pushed her away with all of his strength. And she fell, and she didn't get up. And Jax panics and runs away and never looks back. And Ribbit is stunned for a moment. But then she offers up the explanation. It's like, well, if the cops never came looking for you, she must have been okay. And Jax tries to back out. He's like, he's overshared. This isn't working. But she grabs his hand and she thanks him for trusting her with this information. And, he takes his seat back and Ribbit removes her bow and puts it on Jax's ear. It takes a moment for the gesture to sink in. Unfortunately, this is when the doorbell rings and Kaufmo calls out. Jax panics, shoots up to his feet, throws the bow on the ground, and is calling out for Kaufmo. He's go away, or no, wait, it's fine. You come on, whatever. And he's tripping over his words. And Kaufmo says it's okay, I could come back later. And Jax is like, no, it's fine. You're whatever. Turns to Ribbit and quickly, it's like, hey, don't tell anyone anything, or else I'll never speak to you again. Ribbit kind of meekly agrees, and then Jax runs out of the room.
Which I think, right, that's one of the biggest parts of the avoidant personality is, hey, I trusted you. Now I have to depend on you keeping this secret. I don't like that. I don't like that I have to be scared that you're going to talk to somebody. And I thought when we first saw this, right, that, hey, and don't tell anybody or I'll never talk to you again. Okay, bye. Was kind of an amusing, funny thing until it's like, oh my gosh, nope, we are completely going to ostracize our one support system because we are so scared that now that she has this information, she is going to hurt us. I also wanted to take this moment to talk about, so Jax, with a lot of this information, we're realizing is trans, and that was what was shared with their mom. But I think that it's so hard when you're a child of divorce, and especially when you have parents who are not actually communicating with you in a healthy way. I've had to yell at a lot of parents that I worked with their kids, and I'm like, hey, stop talking to your kid about how horrible their dad is. Because then your kid is like, oh, really? Oh, because, I'm part my dad, so does that make me a horrible person? It really can mess with kids' sense of self and their psyche, and I think that that's what happened with Jax here, not talking about the transitioning and being trans, but talking more about okay, is this a safe person or is this not a safe person? Because everything was like, oh, well, you're just like your dad. Okay, that's a compliment. No, it's not. Oh, it's not a compliment today? Okay, well, I don't know. Well, how about, so poor Jax, I think, tried to have this moment where he could connect, and then it completely backfires. Not condoning anything that the mom said, because I think that yelling at your kid and calling your kid names and doing all that stuff, even when you're angry, is ridiculous. You're an adult, you figure it out. Take a step away, go do something else. But it's something that I've sometimes talked with some of my clients about who are transitioning, or they think they might be trans, or they want to experiment with certain pronouns because they think they might be non-binary and more gender fluid and all of that stuff, is that when they have parents who aren't supportive, I feel like there's the ones who are completely against it. And then there are the ones who I tell these, it was a lot of the teens that I worked with that we would talk about these things. Your parents had an idea of what things would be like based on the gender that you were born, they need time to adjust to the gender that you're choosing. Not saying that they deserve to treat you badly, not saying, but just reminding people too, like, oh, that, and I think that that might be what happened with his mom, is she freaked out on him because it was scary and this is all different, and then realized, but this is my child and I love them. Why would I say these things? And that's why she hugged Jax. But at that point, the damage had already been done. And Jax was scared that she was going to manipulate or use him in some way, I think.
And just.
And also, oh, sorry.
Okay, no, go.
I was going to say also, too, just noting that some of the highest demographics for homelessness are LGBTQ youth. End up on the streets a lot more than a lot of other demographics. So seeing him in the sleeping bag on the street made a little sense there.
Also, one of the things, it gets difficult talking about the finale of the Amazing Digital Circus because the revelation that Jax is trans raises the questions like, so do we continue referring to them with the male pronouns, or do we we switch to female? And the consensus is that the show continues to refer to Jax as a man, but it is, because the show doesn't spell it out. No one says, no one confirms. But if you talk to anyone in the production, Gooseworks has confirmed Jax is indeed trans. Jax should be referred to as female after the reveal. But it is understandable that we had this character that, for like 3 years was male, and big surprise. But then we also get a little bit later, because the show does continue referring to him as male. And then when elements later still presents as male. So it's hopefully everyone will be sympathetic that we continue to refer to Jax as male. Just feel that needed to be said.
And to be perfectly honest, too, and it makes me think specifically about a kiddo who I worked with when I did intensive outpatient who identified he, him. But because they were a teenager and they were not legally allowed to change any of their information, and their parents were very anti-trans, I would sometimes slip and use their dead name and use the wrong pronouns. And that was something that we worked with a lot, because when I first did it, they had a complete panic attack and grounding techniques, all that stuff. And so a lot of what we ended up working on was trying to help manage the emotions when those came, and advocating for himself to say, I'm sorry, nope, that's not my name. My name is, to protect the innocent, I'm making up a name. My name is Mike. It is not Michelle. Please don't use that name. And we worked on that a lot, but I had to apologize every time and say, I am so sorry, but all of my paperwork says Michelle. All of it. And all of my notes, and I told him this ahead of time, I'm like, all of my notes, I'm going to use they, them pronouns, because your mom's going to get mad at me if I use he, him, and I want to be respectful to not use she, her. But the majority of people that I know, because I have several friends who are trans, as long as you're not doing it maliciously and on purpose and to hurt them, they're fine. They correct me, and I work very hard to make sure that I use the proper pronouns. But it's also, I feel like, a lot easier with my adult friends because I don't have to worry about making parents mad. So, yeah, after this, I will probably actually be doing she, her for Jax, but if I slip up too, please forgive me as well.
But continuing on, we catch up with Jax, and they approach Ribbit Ribbit approaches to apologize about how the night went. Jax brushes it off, saying that the whole story was made up. It was some stupid Hallmark bullshit. Can't believe you fell for it. Ha ha ha, big funny. Ribbit, yeah, doesn't feel too well about, she doesn't believe it, and she also probably feels like, this is a joke about her trusting, and it's like, that's gotta hurt. But she tries to, go through it, and she's trying to patch things up and apologize. But we get rather rapid fire visions of Jax avoiding or ignoring or insulting Ribbit. And then we get the argument on the snowy mountain adventure. And Ribbit just wants things to go back to the way they were before, wants to forget everything. But Jax feels like they're being manipulated and is accusing Ribbit of, just manipulation and all that. And Ribbit is trying to get through and explain that that's not the intent, just wants to be friends. But this results in Ribbit, walking away and saying she will never talk to them again.
And right, I think that this scene and really just the whole montage of everything, which is what I think is so sad, is Jax did this to herself. Right? Like she freaked out because now Ribbit has this information on her that she's been mocked for by the person who is supposed to protect her. And I know Ribbit is going to use this against me. I know she's going to tell everybody. I know everyone is going to hate me after this. So you know what I'm going to do instead? I'm going to show that I have the upper hand. And I really do like everything that we see Ribbit do after Jax has confided in her. I feel like is just caring. Hey, I can see that you have a change in demeanor. I can see that there's something wrong. Can we please do something? But yeah, then Jax attacks her character and tells her, oh my gosh, you're manipulating me. You're this. And I can tell you that's one of my biggest pet peeves is when people use psycho talk in the wrong way, or they like, I tell people all the time, hey, it's okay, advocate for your boundaries, voice what you're comfortable with. And then the next thing I hear is, yeah, I told them that they have to do what I say or I'm not speaking to them again. I'm like, that wasn't what we said. Okay. So I think that Jax says, no, you're manipulating me. No, I think Jax is afraid of being manipulated and feels like if they can accuse Ribbit of that, Ribbit confesses to it, then Jax was right. She knew that this was going to happen.
And to keep the ball rolling, Jax meets with Kaufmo and says that if Ribbit says anything about, any secret, anything new, it's all a lie. And then we there's a quick montage of Jax specifically calling out others to brush off Ribbit, and Ribbit walking away from the group. And then at a point later, Ragatha approaches Jax and says the rabbit is missing, and is like, have you seen it? You know if anything's up? And Jax just brushes her off. So what happens next is first we see Jax about to knock on Ribbit's door and then walk off. And then we see Jax hiding from an abstraction. And then we see Ribbit's door with the X on it.
Which can you, again, I feel like the abstractions, it's when they can't face the reality of everything that is reality right now. We know that it's all AI and generated. But you have somebody who is going around and calling you out for something that isn't true in order to protect a perceived issue and getting isolated from people. And I really don't think that the other people in the circus were isolating from Ribbit. I think that she was stepping away because Jax was always with everybody. There's a scene where Jax sees her walking up and she starts going, oh, ha, 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 ha. Ragatha, you're so funny. Can you tell me about that again? And Ragatha's just like, what? What are we talking about? But we never actually see anybody say, oh my God, Jax, really? Oh my gosh, we're on your side. What happened? they just kind of go, okay. So really it is just between Jax and Ribbit, but she started to feel that isolation from the group too and abstracted.
So after Ribbit is gone, first we see Kaufmo trying to console Jax, and Jax just brushes him off. Then Ragatha attempts to console Jax, and this is where we get Jax making Ragatha swear to never talk about Ribbit again. And Ragatha agrees. And right after that, Gangle appears. And this is when Jax recommends that she be called Gangle because she looks all pathetic. And this is immediately when Kane pops up and says, "Yep, your name is Gangle. It's in the system." And both Ragatha and Kaufmo give Jax a look. They've noticed that something's up. And shortly after this is when Kaufmo approaches Jax, starts talking, is like, knows that, stuff's going on, but hey, I've got something more important. I think I found an exit. Jax completely brushes him off and says, "Have fun being crazy." And then we cut to, oh, go for it.
I was just going to say, so the defense mechanism is to make everybody not want to be close to you, because if that happens, then they can't get close enough to hurt you. But what that is doing is hurting everybody else. And I actually wonder a lot if Ribbit was the first abstraction since Queenie. Because everybody actually seems pretty happy and like, oh, ha, 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 yay, we're this whole fun group. We don't see a lot of sadness and everything from it. So I kind of wondered if that's why Kaufmo and Ragatha also started to be like, what is happening? We don't like that. We got to find a way out, man. This is awful.
And then the next thing we see is the flash of Pomni's arrival, and Jax, tells her, is like, "I have fun pretending it's not real, haha." And then we see the flash of Jax looking in the mirror with the bowling ball that they took from Kaufmo's room after witnessing Kaufmo being abstracted. And clearly, Jax is not quite as happy-go-lucky as he appeared in that episode when we first saw it. And sorry, I have to skip over something because I messed up the order here. Ignore that one. Jax leans in close to the mirror, looking at himself, and makes the comment, "What, you gonna cry? Looking like this?"
So I think Jax, oh my God, you're going to cry? You're so weak. You're so this. You're so, just so mean to herself.
And then after that is when we get at the conclusion of they all get guns, Pomni talking to Jax, asking, "What would you do if I abstracted tomorrow?" And we get Jax's comment, "I would move on and probably forget about you."
Which obviously is a lie, because we see her crying about Kaufmo and we see the fear that she has after Ribbit. And no, like, again, there's a sense of wanting to belong and have people who care about you, but it's hard to have that when you can't trust that people actually want what's best for you.
And then we see a lot of static with the abstracted eyes, and then we see Pomni appear in a new void, and the only light comes from a street lamp that Jax is standing under. And Pomni approaches Jax, and Jax makes the comment of like, now you've seen everything. What else do you want?" And as Pomni continues towards Jax, we see visions. We see Jax's mother on the floor, but staticky. And Jax admits to being a terrible person. And I know that.
And I think it's interesting that the image of Jax's mom and her hand and everything like that is so distorted. And then I'm sure there's another image you're about to go through, but I'll wait till we get to it. Um, because it's almost like she can't face what she's done. Like, I did this horrible thing and I should feel ashamed of it and I should feel bad about it. And kind of like how they censor their bleeping with the cursing and everything like that. She's censoring out this violent act.
But next is Jax continues. Why would anyone care about me? We see the vision of Jax's father towering above, slowly closing a door as they leave.
This whole scene is so full of metaphors and just, oh, it makes me so sad for Jax. But why would anybody care about me? And here is this person who I thought loved me who is leaving me and not even saying a word. Like, they seem to have no problem closing that door behind them.
But Pomni continues approaching, and Jax, is yelling now. Is like, no one is supposed to love or care about me. Then we get an interesting vision where Jax's mother has been replaced with Pomni.
Right, and I think that it's I know, and again, I'm not saying that Jax's mom was right to ridicule her for what was said, or absolutely not. And um, I will always stand by with how I work with teens, where I'm like, guys, you just need to be who you are. Screw what other people think. The number of kids who have had to say, you are not a bad kid. Have you made bad choices? Yes. So seeing Pomni here, I think, is Jax reaffirming, I'm a horrible person. I'm about to hurt this other person who I care about too. I hurt anybody who is around me, and I don't deserve to have people. I think that's why she's saying Pomni in that vision instead of her mother, is it just continues that affirmation of she doesn't deserve love.
And Pomni continues, despite Jax is at this point now begging to be left alone. And Pomni runs up, big hug.
Power of the hug, people. I am being very serious about this. This is not being facetious. Like, hug your friends, hug anybody that you love, because it releases a lot of hormones that make you feel good and it increases the bond.
So Jax turns to hug Pomni back and swears she knows she can't go back. And she knows, because of what she did. But Pomni just wants to talk right here, right now. And this is when Jax admits to hating Pomni, because she just makes everything too complicated. Pomni agrees. That's what she does. And Jax cries more. More tears come forth and says he doesn't want to go. And this is when the abstraction outside steps on some discarded flashbang grenades. And we get the Isn't She Lovely sequence that seems to go over every moment between Jax and Pomni throughout the series, in quick succession, as we hear the growing rumble of the explosion from the flashbangs, as Pomni is trying desperately to hold on to the abstraction.
And I'm going to point this out because Nox was making fun of me for it. I missed the Isn't She Lovely part with Jax being trans. And when I first saw this, I was like, oh, is Jax gay? Because they don't come out and say it. So yeah, I was like, I just thought it was a fun song. I like that song. Stevie Wonder's great. Ah. But again, I think that the emotionality in this scene was so intense for me. Like, that's what I was focused on. That whole it tears me up when I watch Endgame too, or which I think that was Infinity War, like, no, I don't want to go. Like, oh my God, it breaks my heart so much to hear when people say things like that, because you want people to live happy, healthy lives, and it really sucks because, like, in this case, it's the abstraction. When something happens that they're not prepared to face or not prepared to handle, and they have no control over it at that point. So yeah, just broke my heart for Jax.
But the explosion continues, the rumble, as Zubul parts appear from off screen to reach out and grab Pomni and pull her to safety. The abstraction seems to explode, and the others comfort Pomni, saying that they'll help her out. That they want to help Jax. So together, the group constructs a tent with which to contain Jax, and Zubul parts are used to lure her inside the tent, where she can calmly rest. And once Jax is safely within the tent, Gangle has a moment where her emotions come forth. She's crying, and she actually runs off to her room to be alone for a little while, and Zubul confronts her. It's like, hey, it's okay to feel the way you feel, but you don't have to do it alone. And she leads Gangle back into the group.
Yeah, and I think that the reason Gangle can finally cry here is, I know we were talking about how Gangle kind of represented the denial phase of it. So now that we have Jax safe, Jax is buried, maybe might be a term. I don't know. But, like Jax is taken care of now. We don't need to worry about her running rampant and oh, wait, but that means Jax isn't here anymore and I can't talk to Jax. And so I think that's finally the reality of the situation hitting her. It can take people some time. I do have clients that they're like, yeah, I haven't even cried since my dad died. I'm like, yeah, it's coming. I guarantee you it's coming. Like, it will not stay hidden for long, but people keep themselves busy.
So then we have Pomni is recovering on the couch, glitching because she was in contact with the abstraction. Ragatha reaches out to comfort her, and she can bear the pain from comforting her as well. But then the camera zooms out, and we see that the group is being observed by Kane.
Dun dun dun. Also, I want to say that with the abstraction, right, and I think, again, obvious things coming from Renee here, but it's just corrupted files, right? That's what I think the abstraction is. So that's why it impacts the other members of the circus so much, is because it's almost like they had a virus that was passed on to them. It's just causing pain, though. Luckily, it's not spreading.
But then, rather than see what Kane is up to, we flash back to Kane appearing in the void after he was first deleted. He's looking around and he's questioning, was he really so bad? Does he deserve to be deleted? Did I ruin this again?
Line of, did I ruin this again? The again part, I just think, is so strong that it's like, oh, I ruin everything I touch. I'm a bad person. And this is, again, where I'd say, like, not bad people, but there's really bad choices here that were made, Kane. Do agree with that.
So Kane kind of just curls up into a ball and just drifts along for a while and seems to be approaching an exit door. And he starts flying towards it, and eventually he loses the ability to fly, so he keeps running towards it. And then he hits a ledge, and he can't reach the door just yet, so he starts, pulling out shapes to construct himself a pathway to reaching it. But as he's doing this, we see the red AI constructing a similar path. And it seems to mirror the current Kane constructing this path. And what we are seeing is the Kane we see right now is going towards the exit. However, the red AI is going towards a folder full of brain scans. Kane continues forward. He's approaching the exit door, which appears to be a Wi-Fi signal. He's having to push past barriers, and he's having to change up his game to construct the pathway. We see the AI in the past doing the similar. The AI in the past finds the brain scans, and then Kane finds the Wi-Fi signal to the Blue Street Cafe. We see Kane accessing the Wi-Fi, and we see the AI accessing the folder. The AI opens one of the files, which belongs to Mike Dobby. And as he seems to construct a form for it, we see Scratch appears in the circus. And then as present Kane interacts with the Wi-Fi signal, it opens up a search bar, which allows him access to the internet, and he begins searching out the identities of his human captives. And he looks for a while, and after searching, he gets disconnected. Then he starts to think. It's like, well, they had lives out there, and it was so much more than I could give them in here. But then another voice, he lurches over, and his eyes glitch out. One side of him is sympathetic to the humans for feeling trapped and growing to hate him, while the other is still resentful of them for not appreciating what he did for them. He argues back and forth for a while before Kane resolves to atone, and he starts by extracting the blue AI and casting it out into the void to do what it will.
And this is one of those things that I absolutely love in horror movies, anime, whatever, like that does this. The red AI was not the villain, right? The blue AI was the one that had all of the fear and everything like that. And I think that when we go back to the very beginning of episode 8, when it was like, okay, we're uploading data. Now we have all these pretty shapes. We're uploading more data. I'm trying to say data and data at the same time. My brain is glitching. Sorry. But then it starts to morph. I think it's because the red AI was able to kind of think more for itself and do what it needed to do. Whereas the blue AI was more about, no, this is my protocol and I'm going to do it. So when the protocol given is, hey, you need to keep the members of the circus happy, the blue AI took it a little bit too seriously. Right. And like, no, see, I have to do this so that they love me, so that we can do this, so that and if they don't like it, then no, they're going to leave me. And so I do think it's interesting that the red AI we're kind of led to believe is the bad one, but it's really the blue AI that had the insecurities that caused a lot of the issues.
Well, that's one theory. But
my theory, do you want to name yours?
Anyway, so Kane is set on atoning and making up for what he did. So he zips back to the circus. And as he approaches the tent, he is stopped by the moon. She welcomes him back, and he's, confiding in her, he's not sure if he deserves forgiveness. The moon tells him that it's going to take time, as all good things do. And at that, Kane is thinking, he's like, he points out to her that he never programmed her to tell him that she loved him. And she just smiles and says that she knows.
Because again, the AI is morphing, it's evolving, it's starting to make its own little world that's not having to follow certain code. It is becoming self-regulating, self-autonomous. I don't know what word I want to use. It's late. But it's becoming its own little system.
All right. So Kane enters the circus, and that brings us back to where we saw him before, watching them from afar. He snaps his fingers, and this immediately fixes Pomni and Ragatha's glitching. But it also makes the party aware that he is there. And you see them get, defensive postures. And as he appears before them, you see Zubul like inching closer to Gangle to get between them and defensively. But Kane tells them He wants to give them control of the circus. And in his searches for answers, he came to understand that what he did was wrong and why. And Zubul is the first to speak out and says that it's going to take a while to trust him again, but all in all, they are actually glad to have Kane back.
And when I pointed out that we still had that remnant of bubble, there, that's when I was like, hey, we didn't actually really delete Kane. I actually think that the red AI was what was guiding Kinger to try and stop the blue AI from all the craziness they were doing. But I do think that this is something that I ask clients a lot when they've gone through either physical abuse or emotional abuse or betrayal of some kind with their partner. Can you move past this? You don't have to today. You don't have to move past it today. But can you move past this? Because some people are like, I don't think I ever can forgive them. Like, okay, then this is done. So Zubul's saying it's, we're glad you're back, but hey, we're going to take some time to trust you. That's actually a very normal thing.
So Kane has something he wants to show them, and he invites them to the stage where he has set up a slideshow. The gang piles onto the couch and they're ready to watch, and Kane tells them that he went out and he found answers, and he's got some stuff he wants to share with them. So the show starts, and he shows Pomni. Real name is Abigail Brooks. She's still an accountant, but she's made more friends, and she's made more videos, and her friends make them with her.
And I always thought it was interesting that Pomni's real version of herself was an accountant, just because I feel like she does have really good insight. So I almost wonder if there's some backstory, but I don't think we'll ever get that part. That's why is she so insightful? Where did she kind of learn those skills? Because you're not usually born like that. You usually have to acquire them in some way.
Then next we have Ragatha. Real name is Susie J. Ackerman. She moves away and cuts all ties with her mother. She, does the real estate thing and does very well at it. And she makes a lot of new friends that she connects with.
And that's something that I also used to get in trouble for a lot when I worked with the teenagers was they would have parents who were, I don't even want to say borderline abusive. Some of them were just downright emotionally abusive and things like that. And I would tell them, I'm like, hey, you do live with them now. You do have to respect the rules, but when you graduate, you don't have to stay here, right? And a lot of the parents would get mad. And I know my boss actually supported me, but the owners of the place didn't really. They're like, oh my gosh, how could you say that? I'm like, they don't want to resolve things with their parents. I'm like, we can talk through okay, well, why not? And what's this? And da-da. But I was like, but they have a choice. And one of those choices can be to walk away. That is not always the best answer for people, but it's not always a wrong answer for people either.
Then next we have Gangle. Real name Zoe Rahaban. She recovers from her accident, quits her job. She gets a job with a design firm, makes friends, and she's sharing her art online, including her webcomic.
Once again, they say she gets out of the hospital. They never say whether she intentionally stepped in the car, whether it was an accident. But I also think, and I don't know how many people watching are familiar with the tattoo, what is that called? There's a reason I didn't take English as a major, guys. The semicolon, where it's like, okay, you know what? That was the end of one chapter and I have a new start. Let's go. That's what's important here. She got out of the hospital. what did she decide to do next? And she followed that dream and she got that dream job that she wanted and she refocused on what her own goals were versus what expectations were. And again, I know they don't actually say she's bipolar. I just really, really think it's hinted at extremely heavily. Hopefully she got on medication or is seeing a therapist who can help her through that. So
Well, maybe she is, and she just doesn't share that online.
which is fine. It's everybody's own private journey. I actually do laugh when I tell all my clients that, HIPAA, I'm not allowed to share any identifying information. I'm not allowed to talk about what we say in therapy. Like I said, that's why I use fake names and I try to use generic scenarios because that is still protecting them. But I've had some clients who say, oh, yeah, well, I wanted to tell my partner this, but I didn't because you said that it needs to stay confidential. I'm like, no. Only applies to me. You can say whatever the heck you want. If you want to do a play-by-play of what our session was and put it online, go for it. It's fine. But it's like you share what you want to. So yeah, if you see a therapist and you want to talk about it publicly, cool. If you see a therapist and you want to keep it private, cool. Do what works best for you.
All right. Then next we have Zubul, real name Riley Versilis. They open a popular, successful, and inclusive bar. They're comfortable with their lot in life, and they are, it's a happening spot. So they're doing very nice.
And I love that it's the triangle bar. You know how Zubul had a triangle head? But hey, they are making their mark on the world exactly like they wanted.
And then we have Kinger, who actually shown through his wife's Facebook page, which I like that. His name is Grant Best. He still works in tech. He's still happily married, and now he has 2 wonderful daughters. And he's a great dad.
And considering that everybody in the circus has a unique look, right? I always thought it was interesting that he and Queenie, the ones who were married, looked almost identical. And I think it's right. It's because it was compiling information about these people and they were spouses. So I think they share kids together. They might share hobbies together. So that's why I think they looked similar, is because probably a lot of their information overlapped.
And then last we get Jax, real name Leroy Mateo. They roomed with friends after being unhoused for a little while. They get a job as a delivery driver and get a lot of close friends that they hang out with at Riley's bar.
Which again, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise just because of how the brain scans were compiled. But they obviously all live close together. And of course, there's the end credit scene, but we'll get to that in a second. But again, it's yes, Jax was going through one of the most painful parts of her life at that moment, and it was really difficult for her. But those things are not forever. Like, anything that you go through is not forever. I'm glad that Jax is able to get off the street and live the life that she wants, hopefully. Yeah.
And I know a few friends who kind of went through it, but if you find yourself without a place, your parents throw you out, you usually will have a friend who's willing to put you up for a little while. Just, be a good guest and don't, take advantage of them. And it'll all work out.
And there are resources, especially when I think about teens. Covenant House is the first thing that comes to mind. I've worked with community outreach programs. When I was in school, I actually volunteered with an annual program that we used to do in our hometown. And I did the intakes, like, okay, how long have you been unhoused? What resources have you used? And the event that we did, it was a kind of a one-stop shop where we had like the DMV was there to help give driver's licenses or ID because a lot of people couldn't get jobs because they had no ID to present. Or hey, we have free haircuts. Hey, we have free um jackets, and we have free resources to try and get you signed up for Social Security disability. And but we made it a one-stop place, but just trying to say, hey, that was an annual thing that was run by a company that was open year round. You didn't have to wait for, I think we did it in February. I can't remember. I did it 3 years in a row, 2 years in my undergrad, then 1 year in my graduate school. But yeah, reach out to resources. There are a ton. Most places, I think it's 211. I think that is a national thing here in the US. 211 will get you to resources. Usually, I think the United Way runs it in most places, but they will connect you to whatever it is you need.
So with all the information about their, real selves related to them, they sit there taking it all in, and Kane, comes up and he resolves that he's going to leave the adventure worlds open and he's going to let all the AIs run free. And then he goes, he's going to pass the reins to Abigail. But Pomni objects. She says that Abigail is outside. She's living her best life. So she's just going to be Pomni.
And I think that that's right. Pomni accepting she is who she is, and she's okay with that, right? It's different than what she thought, but where she is now, she is content, and that's okay.
And then our ending montage begins. We have, we have Kane is taking notes of everyone giving suggestions on how to improve the circus, as Pomni sits under the tent watching Jax, resting in the dark. A mural is painted, to remember everyone they've lost. You have Queenie, Jax, Ribbit, Kaufmo. I forget what the dinosaur's called. Then you have the green thing. I can't remember what that's called either. Then you have Scratch, Wormo, and then the other little clown thing. I probably should have had a list of these things because I think all their names are known because I think everyone asked Gooseworks after it was over. But yeah,
I have no idea.
The mural is painted, and then we have sort of a little thing devoted to everybody. We have Kane is playing a game of D&D with everybody, and he's I can't remember. Does he roll a crit or does he roll a fumble? I can't remember.
I'm pretty sure it's a fumble because he like grabs his head like, oh no.
But yeah, good old DM Gangle. And then of course we have Gangle is sharing her artwork, probably teaching Kane how to draw more than just bees. Then we have Ragatha. She's got her softball team. She's kicking ass. She's playing, leading the Gloinks to victory. And even the cellar gets improved. You have the abstractions are able to swim around in what looks like this kind of darkened aquarium. Zubul opens a bar and, gets to introduce Kane to alcohol. And everyone gathers around because they were abandoning the Last Supper imagery from the first episode. Now they have a round table, and Kane sits with them, and they talk while they eat, and fun is had by all, as Pomni takes it all in, that this is their life now, and their life has improved a great deal. And then we cut to the checkered floor, and Pomni walks up and waves goodbye.
So there's a quote that I learned when I was becoming a therapist, and I don't know who it is, so Google it. It is not mine. I do not take credit for this, but it is trust is built in the repair space. And so I think being able to see Kane actively listening, trying to participate, right, kind of goes along with those actions speak louder than words. they're rebuilding that trust in him as they repair their relationship, as they literally repair the environment and all that sort of stuff. But it's like you don't just go in and say, "Well, can you trust me?" Yes. Okay, great. We're fine. You have to build it. And so Cain is able to show the actions that allow them to trust him. And that's why they're doing so much better.
Yep, and after the credits roll, we get the cute little animations of them doing all kinds of adventures like playing at the beach or exploring a cave or cooking in a kitchen or playing in a band. We get the real world shot where all the human versions of them gather at a bus stop. We have real Gangle, real Zubul, real Ragatha, real Pomni, real Kinger, and real Jax. They're waiting for the bus. It shows up and they all clamber on and it drives away.
Yeah. And I like that we were able to see that, hey, you know what? These people, I don't know, it's almost like, I don't want to say multiverse, but alternate dimension versions. It's like, hey, in this ultimate dimension, we are all the closest of friends and spend so much time together. But in this one, we run into each other, but we really don't spend time with each other. But yeah.
And that's the Amazing Digital Circus.
And I do want to point out, and then this is before we, I think, go into our little final recap with everything. I found it really interesting that I feel like Jax and Cain were essentially the same person, except for Jax was oh, I'm going to keep you at a distance because I'm afraid of getting hurt. And Cain was, I am going to make you stay here because I don't want to get hurt. It was that anxious versus avoidant, but they both had that fear that they were going to be abandoned. And I just thought that was kind of interesting.
But I've told people that, because a lot of people walk away from the show with different interpretations of why things happened, and it's some of them are negative about it, and some of them are somehow positive about it. It's still reductive in weird ways. It's kind of, I don't know, but like, I like Pomni because when she shows up in the circus, she's reaching out to everyone. She reaches out to Kinger and is successful, and she finds his hidden depths. And so that emboldens her when she reaches out to Jax. And a lot of people read into that as like a romantic interest and is like, no, 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 I think that's her finding her way in the circus. And the reason she winds up pursuing Jax so hard is because when she's first interacting with Jax and they all get guns, Jax's viewpoint on archetypes works. Jax elaborates on just being a cartoon character and embracing the cartoonishness, and it works for Pomni because she's immediately better with guns. So she's going to go along with Jax, hang out for the whole episode, and she feels like she's getting closer until she hits Jax's wall. And then she tries to poke holes in the wall and deconstruct the whole archetype thing, and then just get violent in order to get some kind of reaction. And unfortunately, Jax is so solid and rejecting and keeping people at a distance that Pomni doesn't get anywhere. And then unfortunately the complications of the circus amp up because then we get the thing with Abel and Jax's freak out, and then the real attempt to deal with Cain. And yeah, that's kind of how I saw things going, and that's I don't know, that I feel like a lot of people walk away with different interpretations of Pomni, Jax, and the way that led the show along. Because another complaint is that it feels like this world was in a frozen until Pomni showed up, despite the fact that if you go back and pay attention, Abel is actually visible in earlier episodes. Because I think the plan to have the the button test was probably in place before Pomni showed up.
Well, and I also think too, to say that it's like, oh, no, we just weren't there for the adventures because I don't think we talked about him, even though I did see him in my notes. Was what do they call him? Disappearing guy,
Yeah, disappearing
right?
guy.
Where he just come up and be like, hello, I. But when he does that the first time, Pomni's like, oh my God, what the heck was that? And like, oh, that's just disappearing guy. Like, there obviously is this lore, and things obviously did happen. But I really think that we're coming in like I don't know if you want to call her the first of the third shift or the end of the second shift, but I feel like everybody that Kinger was with, right? Like with as soon as they all abstracted, he was by himself. Once Ragatha showed up, it was probably Ragatha, then Ribbit, then Kaufmo, then like they had their whole little group. But then by the time Pomni showed up, more abstractions had taken place, and obviously we see Kaufmo's abstraction. That shows that this is a very big world. It's just, hey, we're following it with Pomni.
But then the other fun things are the because I honestly feel the reason that the moon does the whole "I love you" thing is because one thing that Kane hammers home is that weird things happen when the AIs get smarter, and the AIs get smarter the longer they're active, which is why Abel played along with the thing, and as soon as it was over, it's like, hey, I did a good job. Could I get a raise? Whatever that means, and it was probably just a joke that Kane wanted, and Kane coldly deletes him, and he screams, and it's horrible. But the moon and the sun are probably active all the time, or at least they're half of the day. So the moon has developed some keen insights and adoration for Kane, and the sun hates everyone.
Well, I think there's also that idea of what is that line from The Pit? My therapist thinks I find solace in the darkness or something like that, where it's just like, okay, that's a little deeper than I thought. I feel like there's a lot of, I mean, we see that the abstractions calm down. We see that Kinger tends to be a little bit more here, all of that sort of stuff in the darkness. So I think there is kind of this metaphor of, hey, there's dark sides to everybody. Look at it. I don't want to say embrace it because I think sometimes those things are bad, but look at what that is and what does that mean for you? And so I think that's why the moon might be a lot nicer than the sun, who wants to kill you. Ugh, sorry. Right now, I think everybody in the entire world feels like the sun wants to kill them, but um, yeah, that's kind of what I look at.
Of course, then there's the fun little tidbit that Gooseworks herself voices the moon, and her sister plays the sun.
That's actually really, really funny.
And the other amusing part is that originally Gooseworks' sister was going to voice Pomni, but apparently she was intimidated by how much that was going to be, so they did casting calls. So they cast Lizzie Freeman as Pomni, and apparently Lizzie Freeman's performance. I don't know the word to use here. It's like they felt they had to change their plans for Pomni because apparently Pomni was going to be a much more angry and abrasive character, but then they're like, "Oh, Lizzie Freeman, she's so sweet. We got to change Pomni a little bit."
But I will say, as somebody who has done community theater and acting like that, it's always so much fun to play villains.
Oh, hey, and did I ever tell you that there's an official Amazing Digital Circus manga?
No, you did not.
Yeah, it's I think it's still going because it's way behind because I think it started like a year after the show did. But yeah, it's a thing, and from what I gather, it's completely faithful to the show. So I don't think they've really changed anything. There's just like the weird little hints.
And that's what I think is really fun about the show too, is especially since we've had to go back and rewatch things and all of that for doing this little episode. It's like, oh my gosh, you could see that they knew where they were going the whole time. They kind of had a very straightforward, hey, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it stance on how things were done.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love because I have now watched the entire series through 4 times. And if you've viewed it once and you go back and watch again, you see how much foreshadowing, how much establishment is being done in those early episodes. And yet there's this weird commentary that seems to have taken a hold of a lot of critics that the show shifts gears after episode 4 and is a completely different kind of show. It's like, no. It's like those first few episodes were establishing where we were going, guys.
Well, and I also think too, you have to establish a world, right? And it's like if you go into the deep, dark, heavy stuff and you haven't established why you should care about these characters or what's happening, it's just not going to work.
But that's the Amazing Digital Circus. We loved it. I for the purposes of her mental health, I hope Gooseworks is content with the way it ended, and I hope once the dust clears, she is proud of what she accomplished, and I hope she does well in her future endeavors because I definitely would love to see what comes next, even if it has nothing to do with the Amazing Digital Circus.
I just think it's sad some of the things that you told me where people have kind of attacked her online and what she was doing. It's like, guys, this is her vision. Let her do her thing. Good golly.
And it's like they're kind of pioneering new stuff here. It's like stuff like glitch has kind of not happened before, and I joke about how I was like, I wish I'm kind of spiteful that Amazing Digital Circus is more popular than Murder Drones, but no, really, it's like I am so happy this is doing so well. I was so excited when I heard that they were doing the finale in the theaters. It's like we had tickets bought like within the hour.
Legitimately, he was like, what does your schedule look like? When can I buy these tickets? Ah!
Well, not exactly. It's like Discord messages. It's like, hey, what do you got? Will this day work? Will this time work? Can we do it? Yay!
My friend who ended up babysitting our child before we went to go see it in theaters is still laughing at Nox because I was trying to tell her kind of where everything was, and he comes up and starts knocking on the window. We ready to go? We ready to go? We ready to go? We ready to go? We ready to go?
Hey, if we were late, I
But
might not have gotten my sticker.
I don't know about that. But anyway, guys, it is late on a Tuesday, and I actually have to be in the office. I don't get to work from home tomorrow, so yeah, we really do like to see people list suggestions, list some questions. Feel free to put all that stuff. I think we've only had one person actually ask for how we view a certain movie, and actually that was the next movie that we did. So we do listen. Please feel free to see what any questions come up. I can try to answer them, not in a I am not your therapist, please look for your own therapist kind of way. But if there was something that I said that you're like, oh, where do I get information on that? I can try to guide you, or let us know if you have something you want us to review.
So yeah, I guess this is where I trot out the tried and true. Hey, if you liked what you saw or heard here, go ahead and like and subscribe. Comment down below. We'll take feedback. We're new at this, and hey, so long as you're not like just being outright cruel, you'll probably help us grow. So yeah, we appreciate anything you have.
But have a wonderful evening, everybody. Stay safe. Reach out for help if you need it. Offer help if you can, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.